some height. So this video is going to help a lot of people. It certainly would help me back in the day. There's a lot of nuance to turns, specifically to ride them fast, but it all starts with a solid foundation, which is what I'm going to talk about today, specifically your feet. Do you ride turns with flat pedals, or do you drop that outside foot down to the 6 o'clock position? Well, it's a sensitive topic. A lot of people are very passionate about one way versus the other, and they will certainly let you know, but you know, nowadays more than ever, people form teams. You're either conservative, you're liberal, you're either pro e-bike or anti e-bike, pro grip shift or pro rapid fire. Well, maybe that's back in the day. Most things in life, there is gray area. So I'm not gonna exactly tell you what to do. I'm gonna tell you what I do and why, and you're gonna understand the importance of the gray area in terms of turns. So let's get after this. All right, so first let's take a look at why putting your outside foot, the foot on the outside of the turn, putting that foot down in the 6 o'clock position is so important. So when you're riding your bike, an object in motion wants to stay in motion. So your body mass wants to continue just going forward on a straightward path. However, we want to carry our body mass through a turn, and to do so, we need to gain all of the traction that we possibly can to redirect our body mass on that curve. So what happens is when we put our outside foot down, all of our weight goes into this foot and it goes onto the outside of our bike, on the outside of the turn. Why is that important? Well, you can kind of look at it this way. So if you're riding your bike in a straight line and you pick up, a little bit of speed and you lock on your rear brake, you're going to skid, okay? And you're gonna slowly come to a stop after a skid. Now, if you do the same experiment, but you lock your front brake, you are going to come to a stop very quickly. And the reason why your front brake is so much more effective is because it's in front of your body mass. So what happens is when we brake the front wheel, our body mass wants to continue going forward. And in doing so, puts a lot of weight on the braking mechanism and puts a lot of traction into the tire. So we get a lot of friction into that tire. So it makes the whole braking process way more efficient. When we put all of our weight into our outside foot, it really drives our weight into the traction of our tires, which really allows us to drive the tires into the ground to get as much friction as possible to really carve through the turn. So dropping your outside foot seems incredibly beneficial, and it seems like a no-brainer. However, to be honest with you, I probably drop my foot to the 6 o'clock position only 10% of the times. And to understand why, we need to look at the benefits of keeping your feet flat or parallel in turns. So when we keep our feet flat and parallel in turns, again, all of our weight is still centralized on our bike. Now, it's not on the outside of our bike, on the outside of the turn, but it's centralized, which is a good thing, right? But look what I can do when my feet are flat or level. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. So what happens is when I drop my outside foot down, it anchors me a little bit on the bike. So I have less movement, less fluidity. So I'm kind of anchored here. Whereas when my pedals are level, I can be high, I can be low, I can be forward, I can be back. I can pump, right? I can push into the pedals. When I'm here, I can only do so much. I'm off balance when I go in front of my pedals. I'm off balance when I go behind my pedal. And just by having this foot down, really anchors me, it tethers me kind of to a position where I have less mobility, we'll say. And you're gonna find that mobility in turns is super beneficial. It's super powerful to be able to push into your tires into turns and to be able to pop and get light at certain instances. But that doesn't help with waiting for traction. So how do I weight the bike for traction when I don't drop my outside foot? So what I do to counteract that is when my pedals are level, okay, I lean my bike over and I push my hips to the outside. So when my bike's leaned over and my hips are on the outside, what that does is that it puts my body mass on the outside of my bike, similar to when my foot is down in the 6 o'clock position. So by doing this, I've weighted the outside of my bike, but I still have that mobility that the level pedals offer. So remember how I said there's a lot of gray area. There's no one or the other. So while I tend to try to keep my pedals as level as possible because I really appreciate that mobility it offers in my hips, many times I will still drop the pedal down a little bit. So you can think of dropping that outside foot down just a little bit, kind of like let's add a little bit more traction to this experience, right? If you feel like you need a little bit more traction, or the turn's just a little bit more aggressive or sharper, or the surface is a little bit less stable or a little bit looser, then what I'll do is I'll drop it down a little bit more. If I need more traction, I'll drop it down a little bit more. And sometimes I will go straight to the 6, put all my weight in it and turn my hips right through the turn and carve through the turn.
Okay, so let's take a look at some scenarios here in detail, and I'll just talk through it briefly and then I'll get you on your way. So can you see my mouse? I'm going to use the mouse cursor here to kind of pinpoint some of the things that I'm talking about. This turn here, it starts up here and it's a bit of a chicane in that it comes and turns this way, and then it comes into the turn here, and then it turns out and progresses this way. It's important to know that it's chunky coming in, and this turn here and this turn up here are flat, which means the inside of the turn and the outside of the turn are level. What happens though as this turn progresses outward is that it becomes off camber, which means the inside of the turn is higher than the outside of the turn. Off camber turns are typically turns where it is the most difficult to find traction because you're really sliding somewhat downhill to the outside of the turn. Now, as I approach the onset of the first turn into the second turn, my pedals are flat, and that's because I want a flat, stable platform. The more level that your feet are, the more stability and mobility that you have. As soon as you drop a foot down, your feet get closer together and you have a little bit less stability. So it's a bit of a give and a take. So as I come into this first turn here, because my feet are level, I can really pump and drive the bike into that turn. I can be really aggressive with my upper body and my legs and really drive into that turn, which will bring me out of the turn quickly. Additionally, when my feet are level, if there's any kind of like rocks and roots and stuff, I can push through it very strongly with my legs because I have a great stable platform. So I come through that turn with level feet and I really pop and drive out of that turn, which leads me into the second turn. So at this point here, my pedals are still relatively level. Now my front pedal might be dropping down a little bit closer to the 4 o'clock position because what I'm doing is I'm preparing for this off camber turn right here. But you'll see now how my hips are on the outside of the bike and I'm pointing them through the turn. That's really helping me drive my weight down into my tires here. As I come through this turn, if my pedal was down at the 6 o'clock position right here, I would be kind of locked into my line. And here's the thing to know is when you commit to your pedal being in the lowest point, the 6 o'clock position, and the trail is chunky or the turn is chunky and rocky, what happens is all your weight's in that pedal and you'll get like a pendulum effect where you kind of have this instability in that pedal. So I really avoid dropping to the 6 o'clock position in all scenarios where the trail is rough and rugged. So it's not super rough and it's not super rugged right here, but at this point I did not feel the need that I needed to drop my pedal to that point for traction. However, as I come through the turn, I'm losing a little bit of traction here. You can see the dirt kicking up and I know that my front wheel is now feeding into a little bit of an off camber section. So because of that, I feel that I need a little bit more traction. So I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of stability and lower my outside foot and really put the weight into my heel. What that's going to do is it's really going to push all my weight into the tire. So I'm not quite at the 6 o'clock lowest position here. Perhaps I'm maybe at the, we'll call it 4:30 or 5 o'clock position. Because you can see that there's still a lot of bend in my knee, right? So as I come out of that turn, I still have a lot of traction, even though that it's feeding into an off camber exit. Had I felt as though my bike was continually sliding off the trail, I likely would have straightened my leg out a little bit, dropped my heel and my pedal down into the 6 o'clock position, really carved out of the turn. Let's take a look at this scenario here. What we have is a catch berm, and this catch berm is right after a very, very chunky section of trail, and this catch berm is right before a little gap jump. So you really need to be on your toes, and you need to be really balanced and well stabilized coming into the catch berm and well stabilized coming out. So as I come in, you can see I'm coming off the chunky stuff, and my pedals are level right here. Pedals are still relatively level. and they remain for the most part level throughout this whole turn. So I didn't feel a point where I needed to drop my outside foot down too aggressively because I didn't feel as though I was losing traction in the tires. The beauty with a berm is that it's really kind of catching our body mass, right? So it's helping us kind of find that turn and redirect our body mass through it, as long as we lean into it and we kind of, match the angle of the berm with our bike angle. So because I came into this with level pedals, I could really pump and drive my weight into this little catch berm, hold level pedals throughout, which really helped with my stability and really let me hook into this berm and utilize everything that the berm would give me. And that really is allowing me to pump out of the berm, which is important because soon after this berm, I have a gap jump here. So I was prepared for it. I didn't have to, backpedal, a bit to get level pedals or take a few pedal strokes. Those types of things can, impact your stability before a jump. So if you can retain level pedals before a jump, the longer you can retain those level pedals, the more stability that you'll have as you approach the jump. Now let's take a look at a bigger berm here. It's a soft berm, okay? So stability will not be guaranteed. Again, when you ride berms, you generally want to try to keep your pedals level because it gives you, a real stable, strong platform for the G-force that you're going to experience when you carve through the berm. And I'm able to retain level pedals till about this point here. Now, you could argue that perhaps I went a little high in the berm where it's a little bit softer, but really if you knew this berm, you would know that you really need everything that this berm can give you to pump out of it, because again, there's another gap jump after it. So you really have to ride this berm strong and as powerful as possible. And to do so, you really want to try to keep your pedals as level as possible. However, this berm is soft, so I felt just a little bit of a loss of traction. So because of that instability, what I did was I dropped that outside pedal down to about the 4 o'clock position. When you come into berms, you want to come out of them strong and fast, and you kind of stand up out of them, and that allows you to kind of pump out of the berm and like pop out of the berm. And when you do that, you want to keep your hips centralized over the bike. You don't really want to drive your hips backward, because when you drive your hips backward, you take a lot of the weight off your front tire. So you really want to kind of stay forward on the bike, knees over toes, chin over the stem. But when your pedals are more level, it still gives you a ton of mobility and strength in your legs. And as I drive out of it, see, I stand up a little bit and my pedals come back to level again, because I have another jump up here that I need to prepare for. And it really allows me to pop out of that berm with strong legs. So here's another angle of the same berm. As I come in, again, I'm staying forward. My hips are really strong over the bike, and my pedals are relatively level. And as I feel the softness in that berm, I might feel my tires drifting a little bit. And because of that, I might drop my outside pedal down ever so slightly to really try to improve the traction that I have in my tires. And here's the point where I'm starting to stand up out of the berm, because I really want to use that berm as a slingshot and ride out of it strong. It's easier to stand up out of a berm or pop out of a berm when your pedals are level.
So here's the other thing I get. Josh, you should switch your forward foot through turns. That's the ultimate way to do it. And I didn't believe it, but I gave it some credibility and I researched it, and I really never saw any downhill riders switching feet through turns. And in addition, when I was a kid, okay, I would get very bored, and I learned how to ride kind of switch foot here, whatever you want to call it, switch stance, fakie, to the point where I could jump pretty well with my feet switched pretty solid and comfortably. And even with that skill that I learned, I still don't feel a benefit of switching, lead pedals through turns. So this is Josh in the future, broken chain in hand, skating back to the several miles to my car, I'm hoping I don't come across anything that I commit to pedal dropping. So I'm being careful. Now, that being said, if you found this video helpful, please hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you'd like. What that does is it just tells the algorithm that this content is helpful and it'll push it to other people. I don't get kudos, I don't get cookies, I don't win prizes when I get more likes or more comments or more subscribers. But you can help other people out, just like you, just by helping me get the word out.